Welcome to the Brian Wright Audio Experience, a podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs grow their business, make more money, and successfully navigate through the chaos of life, all while working, spending, and stressing less. And now your host. He's a husband, a father of two, an international business and life coach, and a trusted motivational speaker for some of the most respected companies in the world, such as Invisalign and many others. Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian Wright here, coming to you with a special Thanksgiving episode. Wanted to do this one. I had a couple questions after the last episode that I did, talking about the Navy SEALs and trust versus performance, and the questions were very similar. And I went back and listened to the episode, and I did, but I didn't explain it nearly to the levels that I wanted to. So I thought we'd do a special Thanksgiving today on a couple topics. One, just viewing how to be grateful a little bit differently about the business you have, about the career you have, about the life you have. And two, I want to answer those questions from the previous episode. I'm going to start with that first. A couple things really quick around that. So I was talking about, if you haven't listened to the episode, I do want you to pause now. I want you to go back, listen to that episode first, and then come to this one. It'll make a lot more sense. And I want to dive in. The questions from the podcast listeners were, why do the Navy SEALs hire that way? Why is it more about trust than performance? After all, their real job, quote unquote, is to save lives. So if you have somebody that is amazing at saving lives, isn't that always going to be more important than all the rest of the things? And this is the thought process that a lot of you have inside your businesses, right? You say that, Betty is so good with the customer. Betty is so good at presenting money. Joey is so good at sales, et cetera, that you are completely oblivious to all the other stuff, the off the field, quote unquote, things that those people do to crush your culture and drive down performance of others. And again, why? Well, if you listen to the other episode, is that there's a ton of metrics that you can judge around performance. So if you have Joey that's kicking butt at sales, you automatically can see that on paper, and you're like, hey, he's above quota, he's making sales. Love Joey. Meanwhile, when Susie and Betty and Timmy are all below their quota, the reason why they're below their quota is because that other guy that you think is so good on paper is killing the morale and driving down the performance of others. But here's the real reason the Navy SEALs hire and keep and retain their team, like I said, and this is exactly what your philosophy should be, both from a hiring standpoint, but also from how do we keep people standpoint? How do we know when to terminate? How do we know when to provide bonuses, et cetera, et cetera? Remember, the performance is almost always a trainable skill set, okay? So performance, athlete on the field, their baseball swing, how they're fielding ground balls, whatever it may be, you can train people and coach people to get better at the skill sets around performance. Now, they have to be coachable, they've got to be trainable, etc., and those go into the trust factors, right? So if you go over to the trust dial, and again, I'm not going to get into the weeds on the differences because that's what the previous podcast did, but the trust dial, the compassion, the loyalty, the going the extra mile, the self-improvement, the looking in the mirror, the culture, the leadership, being trainable, being coachable, being innovative, improving the mindset, being willing to read a book when they don't necessarily get paid for it, right? Just because they want to improve their own skill sets as well as improving others and making them better. Those, not always, and I would argue usually, are not trainable skill sets. A lot of those you come with. Now, leadership is absolutely a trainable skill set, no doubt about it. So leadership is a trained skill set. We have a lot of podcasts talking about the irony of all the leadership positions in your organization, and you are going to love that podcast as it paints an image of the leaky holes that you have from the top down from a leadership standpoint. All right, but a lot of times, even though leadership is a trained skill set, that doesn't mean that person is coachable and trainable and willing to change and willing to get better. We run into that a lot of times over in the healthcare industry, is that you have office manager Betty who runs the show, but she has no interest in getting better, right? She would rather be a boss and a babysitter than a leader. Two very different things. So if you look at the trust dial, the way the Navy SEALs looks at it is many of those are skill sets that the person already comes with. Now, can they be refined and improved? Of course they can, but they can't be installed, okay? You can't install, except, again, like I said, it's not 100%, But the majority of the time, you can't install the mindset of somebody that wants to go beyond for their team members, that wants to go beyond for their organization, that's willing to go the extra mile for the business owner and do whatever it takes, right? Even if they're not being paid for it as it stands today. Those are a lot of times are people that come with those things, right? And the Navy SEALs knows this, right? And that goes back to, remember I talked about performance is, can I trust you with my life? Trust is, can I trust you with my wife? All right, it's how they look at it, and it's the same way that you should look at it in your organization. Employees watching, going back to, look yourself in the mirror. Is the trust factor all the things that you can't see? There are no metrics for, or at least there's very little metrics for. Are you a rock star in those areas? If you want to get a raise, if you want to go to your boss, your leader, and say, I deserve to be paid more, I want an hourly pay increase, salary increase, I want an increase in my commissions, whatever it is, you better be a rock star in the trust factor of things. Business owners, entrepreneurs out there, small businesses, large businesses, leadership teams out there, whatever it may be, you have to excel at having a team that excels in the trust factor. All right, so I wanted to go back to the biggest reason is the Navy SEALs looks at that as the performance is a trainable skill set. The trust factor is not always a trainable skill set, all right? You can hire someone that's a go-getter, that's coachable, that's happy, that loves life, that wants to do well, wants to improve. You can coach those people on a performance basis all the way through the roof. If you get somebody that's pretty good on the field, but they are a miserable person, don't like others, don't have the skill sets, aren't coachable, aren't trainable, et cetera, you cannot improve those people's performance at all. This is why the Navy SEALs hires this way, retains this way, and it's exactly what you should be doing with your organization, leadership team, employees, etc. That is how you should hire, that is how you should retain, and that is how you should bonus, pay increase, et cetera, et cetera. Now, today, Thanksgiving episode, wanted to do this and hop in. I've got the turkey going. I did the brine, started it on Tuesday, get it all nice and juicy, and it's in the oven right now as we speak. About to go, when I hang up here or when we get done here, I'm going to go and knock out a few other things, the stuffing and a cranberry salad and a few other things. But I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving out there. Sometimes as humans, we get very focused on the negative. Sometimes that's even easier to coach than it is to actually not do. This is one of those examples. I fall into this trap. If our business doesn't have the year we want, or if it's not having the month we want, or we're having turnover and we can't find the right people, whatever it may be, whatever the problems, we very much focus on those issues, right? And a lot of times those issues are uncontrollable. It goes back to the performance versus trust. You can't necessarily control making a sale, but you sure as hell can control getting better at sales. Okay, you can control that, right? And usually the organic result of what you can't control usually starts to go in your favor over the course of time. It's like the weight scale when you're losing weight. What can we control? Well, we can control tracking calories, eating the right calories, exercising, getting in the gym, increasing our cardio and tracking that. We cannot control the weight scale. But far too many of us focus on the weight scale, right? And then you get frustrated if the weight scale doesn't go in your direction. That's why you've got to shift that. And it's the same way with your business. It's the same way with your career. You've got to be badass at what you can control. All right. We've kind of had a theme so far with podcasts that's going around the leadership and culture of your office. But today, if you are sitting down with your family or sitting down with friends, or maybe a combination of both, you have food on the table, you have a house to be nice and warm and cozy in, you're cooking, you've got turkey, you've got all the goods, and you run a business, I would say your business is going pretty well, all right? You've got to stop focusing just on the negatives and look at the positives. I know today we have some friends over cooking in a beautiful house here in Colorado Springs, gorgeous views, and so very thankful for all of that. And just our surroundings and support system and all my customers and fans out there. It's amazing, right? Can't wait to see you next year at some big events that we have. Big events coming up. We're going to have some audiences in the thousands next year already registered, and those events are sold out. And I'm so grateful for all of you. So I wanted to give a Thanksgiving thank you to all of you, and then all the blessings that my family has as we sit here coming from the broadcast booth in Colorado Springs. And I want you all to do the same, all right? Put anything that you're struggling with from a business perspective, or employees from a career perspective, or maybe your marriage isn't going well, whatever it may be. I want you to take a day and look at all the positives right? Because if you verbalize those positives, it's going to change your state and you're going to have a much better day, okay? If you have food on the table, things are going pretty damn well for you, okay? Maybe not, I get it. As an entrepreneur, we're never satisfied. If you are satisfied, you need to go do something else, right? And that's different. Like, we're grateful, and you should be grateful, but not satisfied because we always want more, and that's fine, but you got to take the time to be grateful for what you have, okay? So Thanksgiving, or happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thanks for, we are already above 1,000 in the downloads, and we just launched this podcast, and I am going to give my Thanksgiving gratefulness to all of you out there, and hopefully you go back. If you haven't listened to the previous podcast, this one will make more sense. Remember, performance never trumps trust. Trust is the untrainable skill sets, like I said, for the most part, that a lot of people come with. All right, you've got to find those people, and if you can, you will be able to coach them to be beyond better in performance than you can possibly imagine. All right, have a great Thanksgiving. Love you all. We'll come back soon with another one soon. See you later. Bye-bye. Hey there, this is Brian Wright, and thanks so much for listening. If you're enjoying the Brian Wright Show and you enjoy that episode, please give us a great 5-star review on whichever podcast outlet you are listening to the Brian Wright Show on, as well as reminding you that we are on YouTube as well. So if you prefer to watch the podcast, you can, and please give us a thumbs up, make some great comments for us, and spread the word. Tell your friends, family, coworkers, etc. It would really help us out growing this organic following. Thanks so much for your support, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.